gentlemen. Podcasting since 2005. You were listening to Gamer Tag Radio with your hosts Godfrey, Pete Rock, Paris, Paustinj.
Come on.
Hey, what's up, world? Patrick here, aka Paustinj, and you're listening to Gamertag Radio episode 512. Now, if it sounds a little quiet this week, that's because it's going to be a one-man show, because I got something pretty cool I wanted to share with y'all. Last week, I had an amazing opportunity to travel out to San Francisco to check out Ubisoft's upcoming shooter Rainbow Six Siege at its final preview event before the game launches later this year in December. There I got to see some new multiplayer maps be unveiled for the first time, multiplayer modes, and some surprising new single-player content as well. Before we jump into all that good stuff, don't forget, we'd love to hear from you, so if you have any questions, feedback, or concerns, please send it to fanmail@gamertagradio.com, or if you want, leave us a voicemail at our number, 786-273-7GTR. That's 786-273-7GTR. And if you like us, please don't forget, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or if you have the beta, Spotify as well. Now, I got a couple cool things planned for this week's episode. I have an interview with Scott Mitchell, who is the lead animation designer on Rainbow Six Siege. Later on the show, I'm going to break down some of my hands-on gameplay impressions of what I thought of the new content, the new modes, new maps, and what to expect from the game overall when it launches later this year. In addition to that, there's also a video available you can check out after you're done with this episode, where I put together all of my best gameplay footage that I captured from the event as I play through the single-player content, the cooperative content, and the versus multiplayer content as well. It's really cool. Don't forget to check it out when you're done listening. But first things first, let's hop right into the interview and let Scott Mitchell explain what is Rainbow Six Siege, why they chose to go this route, and what kind of inspiration they took from the real-world operators the game is based on. So, without further ado, let's pass it off to Scott and see what he has to say.
This is Gamer Tag Radio. Voicemail 786-2737-GTR.
Your season-long fantasy football team may be going strong, but you don't have to wait until week 16 to get paid. Put your fantasy skills to the test every week this season at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. One-week fantasy means no season-long commitments. Got an injured player? No problem. It's like a new season every week, so you're never stuck with the same players. And get this, DraftKings is crowning a new millionaire every week this season. You could turn your love of football into a life-changing payday. Just pick your players, pile up the points, pick up your cash, that's it. Believe me, you've never experienced football like this before. This isn't fantasy as usual, this is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. And like we've been telling you guys all season, folks, NFL is finally here. It's football time. We're ready to go. You don't have to be stuck in your typical fantasy draft leagues. You can do DraftKings, and every week is a new week. So I'm super excited to get this going now. So let's get into some DraftKings. But before you do, hurry over to DraftKings now and use our promo code GamerTag to play for a free shot at $1 million in this week's Millionaire Maker event. Enter GamerTag for a free entry now only at DraftKings.com. That is DraftKings.com. Once again, DraftKings.com.
Voicemail 786-2737-GTR.
Hey, it's up, GTR? Patrick here again, and back with a new sweet interview for you guys. I'm checking out Rainbow Six Siege right now. Had a lot of hands-on time, the multiplayer, the terrorist hunt, the new mode situations, which I'll detail later. But right now, I'm joined by my friend Scott Mitchell. Scott, what is it you do at Ubisoft?
I'm the animation director on Rainbow Six Siege.
Excellent. So first off, Siege, I am completely addicted to it. I love the team aspect, but what gets me is the destructible environments and how they continue to surprise me. What was kind of like a level design philosophy for you guys going in, for animations and the general design of the maps? What did y'all want to do with each of the maps? What drove you to do these different types of maps, the houses, the large outdoor spaces? Talk about a little bit of the variation of that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'll go into what differentiates us from most other shooters, and that's that all the objectives are inside. They're indoors, so it makes for really close quarters combat. Now that presents a big challenge for everybody because, typically you work with these metrics that don't change. But because we're opening up sightlines inside, because, with the destruction, you can destroy pretty much everything that's not part of a supporting structure. That means that the map you finish with isn't the map that, the map you start with isn't the map you finish with, rather. So it's super dynamic. That's where the big challenge comes in. It's a brand new, interesting element of gameplay. It makes people really be tactical, and that goes back to the roots of Rainbow. It's fantastic. But yeah, it's a lot of cooperation between different departments, specifically animation and level design. Make sure that we're respecting the metrics. Following golden rules of shooters, but then you got these sight lines that are opening up. So. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the animation factor because I've noticed, it seems pretty on point. Did y'all take influence from Real World Special Forces and how they move and how they operate to draw the animation from?
So we've done multiple mocap shoots with experts from the field, from SWAT to ex-Israeli counter-terrorist operators. We've learned a lot from them, kind of what their tactics are, and of course, tried to apply that as much as possible.
I guess let's talk about the approaches between attack and defense. And so essentially, what is the goal of, say, I guess break it down to me for the attacking and the defending side of the factor, and how y'all went in terms of the designing, like you said, those maps with the sight lines, destructible environments, how you can outmaneuver your opponents. But I guess speak more on, the breakdown of the attack and the defense, and what kind of drives that.
So the concept of the siege really is nothing new. It's that's been around for centuries. It's the asymmetrical confrontation between an attacker and defender, and the idea being is that the attackers are trying to get through the wall, so to speak, and the defenders, they've got a bit of an advantage. They know their surroundings and they've got themselves barricaded in, whereas the attackers might not know exactly what's going on inside, so they come in a little bit blind. And for us, that just posed such an interesting opportunity. And when we ended up with the working on the destruction technology and all the new hardware came out, then it just all came together really well.
Very cool. So that's how I was talking about the multiplayer side. Let's talk more about the terrorist hunt. You have the breakdown, the normal, the hard, the realistic. How did you kind of model the AI of these terrorist hunts? Did you base that off of anything, or are you just trying to design like the most lethal, efficient fighting force you could? So you have that challenge when you go into these maps.
So the idea behind the terrorists and the new terrorist hunt is that they're more survivalists. Mm-hmm. So they're trained, but you don't know kind of what their training is. You also don't know what exactly they want or who exactly they are, thus the white masks. So they're an unknown threat. You just know that they're popping up all over the world. And that's where Six comes in, and she kind of gives you some context as to what she's looking for you to do, why you need to rebuild Team Rainbow, etc. But again, they're built off of the idea that they're survivalists. So they do have some training. And as you've seen, I'm sure as you've been playing through, you notice that they play like a player does as well. So depending on the level of difficulty you play at, whether you're playing it normal or realistic, they really change. Either they're super precise, but they're still using all the destruction and all the same opportunities that a player would.
Very cool. So I guess I want to go back to the map design real quick, because it just fascinates me of how the interesting things y'all came up with. Did y'all have a plan going in of like what style of maps y'all wanted, or was like a natural thing of like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this, or wouldn't it be interesting if we had 3-4 story houses? Like, what was the design process when you had to like initially design these maps from scratch?
It was long. There are multiple maps that didn't make it. But again, it all comes down to the fact that everything has to be indoors, because we're looking for close quarters combat and really pushing the whole tactical aspect. So that's really what drove kind of where the maps ended up.
Talk briefly about the operators. You said there's 20 of them, 10 attack, 10 defenders. What was the inspiration for the abilities? Some of these are things I haven't even seen in other games that try to be a little bit cutting edge with their technology. Where'd you get inspiration for some of these cool abilities and gadgets?
It's quite difficult actually, because they're all completely different. I mean, between the attacker side and the defender side, you're going to have devices that can counter one another, right? Balancing all of that was extremely difficult, and we're still working on it. But it all still fits within the realm of believability. It fits within the Clancy universe. It's based on modern times. It's fantasy, but it's still quite believable. So all that presents a real challenge when you're trying to design something that that's going to be able to be balanced, and it's not going to be an exploit for anybody. Yeah. But most of all, because it has to work with the destruction, and opening up the idea of sightlines and the teamwork, and how each operator completely changes the way that a game plays and the tactics that people use. So a lot of work has gone into balancing these operators.
Very cool. Now, were you guys surprised by some of the testing y'all did early on of players actually doing things y'all didn't even think of? Do you have any examples of things like that?
I have more examples of player feedback where they felt like the operators were too overpowered, and we've really taken that and readjusted our priorities and then started balancing from there. The point men, for example, is one area where we're still actually working on, because in animation, I can give you feedback as to that you're taking hits on the shield and that kind of stuff, but beyond that we didn't know what to do. So we started opening up the shield when you're reloading, to make you open and start making it a little bit more difficult.
You want to break down the new situations game mode that y'all announced, and what's that designed for and what you hope to accomplish with it?
So the new situations mode is the best way for new players to come in and figure out how Rainbow Six Siege works. It's basically to ease players into the experience, because as I mentioned early, during the closed alpha and the closed beta, we've really been throwing people into the fire, so to speak, and people have been learning by trial and error and having a great time. But for players maybe that are a little bit more casual, or are used to other types of shooters, which we're not like anybody else, it's a much less frustrating way to go in and to experience what Rainbow Six is all about, the different modes, the different operators, etc., and then go online and test your skills.
Very cool. And I like that you brought that up, that no one else is kind of doing what you guys are doing right now with this game. It is unique. It does stand apart. Was that deliberate, or because you just wanted to be faithful to the Tom Clancy legacy? What drove y'all to make Siege the style of game that it is, which to me is not to throw shade on Counter-Strike, but it's a more intimate, more personal, more thinking man's version of the 5 vs 5 single life. Why did y'all design Rainbow Six to be Siege-like, if you will?
Well, Patriots went on for a long time, and the vision changed a few times. And what happened was, when the new creative direction came in with the whole Siege pitch, the team decided to go back to the Rainbow roots and make it tactical. And I think that's where maybe other shooters aren't the same. We're really aiming for a super tactical game, and players are really finding out quite quick, especially with the whole concept of the one life, that if you don't play the game tactically, you can't rush in. Well, then your life is over pretty damn quick.
Very, very quickly. You have to be on point. You have to communicate too, which is the critical thing. So finally, the last thing you'll announce today was the old spectator mode is going to be available at launch on PC, and you'll also be able to shortly after on consoles. Can you kind of break down what spectator mode is and what you'll hope to get out of it?
So the spectator camera is also an interesting way for new players to come in and to check out what's going on, to see how the different team members are playing through, what different tactics are being used, how people are using the different operators and devices, and maybe where some interesting sight lines can be opened up, for example. But it's also turned into this interesting way for people looking at maybe esports to be able to coach their teams. They can't directly communicate with the rest of the team over the mic, but it's a cool way to bring an extra person in to kind of analyze how the game is being played.
Like for esports, is that something y'all are going to actively help develop with the esports community, or are you going to help them take it over and figure out what they want to do with it? You're going to have a close relationship?
Well, actually, from the start, Rainbow Six wasn't. We weren't planning on esports. That's not what our main goal is. Our main goal is really a solid game that goes back to the roots, and we really want to satisfy Rainbow fans, but we also want to bring in new players and convince them, like, hey, look, this is something fresh. So come and try it out, and it's a whole lot of fun. There's tons of replayability. So that's where we're going. A lot of people have been talking about esports, and quite frankly, if it does go there, we will consider supporting it for sure. And again, the spectator cam is one of those tools that we've added in there that kind of shows that we're willing to support it.
Very cool. It's a very fun game. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I can't wait to get my hands on it. When can everybody get their hands on Rainbow Six Siege?
So December 1st is
December 1st. What platforms?
On all platforms. So PC, Xbox One, and PS4.
Excellent, Scott. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck finishing the game, because I want to play it real soon.
Voicemail 786-2737-GTR.
Socks. That's right, socks. Anyone that knows me or follows me on social media knows I have a thing for socks. And I have to tell you guys about Mack Weldon. These guys were dope enough to send me a few pairs. And I have to say, they're the most comfortable things in the history of hosiery. Yeah, I just said that, didn't I? Whatever, I'm sticking with it. They're that good. They stay up. They have this little padding on the bottom that literally feels like little pillows for your feet. And not just that, they're mad stylish as well. They also sent me some t-shirts. I mean, who doesn't dig t-shirts, right? But these shirts are special. They have this thing called XT2 Silver, which means they've got silver woven into the fabric of the shirt. And because of the silver tech in the shirts, means they're antimicrobial and anti-odor. And with Fallout 4 coming out soon, this means you can literally get lost in the wasteland for days without smelling or needing VADs to get healthy. And if that wasn't enough, if you don't dig what you get, doesn't fit right or whatever, they'll replace it or refund your money, no questions asked, or returns needed. The whole process is a breeze. Just head on over to mackweldon.com. That's mackweldon.com to place your order and get 20% off by using the promo code GTR. That's promo code GTR and save 20% right now over at mackweldon.com.
Voicemail 786-2737-GTR.
All right, and we're back. So let's go into more detail about the new content I got to see for Rainbow Six Siege. First off, playable classes. In the final version of the game, you're going to have 20 operators you can choose from. 10 for the assaulting team and 10 for the defending team, and each has their own unique ability designed to either help their teammates or to counter and destroy the enemy team. The thing I really like about Siege is it's very well balanced. No class or no side has a distinct advantage over the other because whatever ability one class may have, there is a counter to that ability on the other team. Good example of this, as a defending team, one of the operators has the ability to place explosives that they can remotely detonate to lure enemies into traps or to make certain rooms unbreachable by the assaulting team. One of the assaulting classes has an EMP grenade specifically designed to be thrown into these rooms and to destroy all remote explosives, all surveillance equipment, and all booby traps to make a room safe for entry. Another example I like, as a defending team, one of the classes has heavy armor and can set up a heavy mounted machine gun that is set in one place, but then they can pick it up and move it whenever they want. This creates great choke points and kill zones for the defending team, but it puts you in a single place. So the counter for that I like is there's a sniper class on the assault team that usually stays outside of the main structure that his other four teammates are trying to breach and basically provides sniper fire support. So any open windows, any opening shot they get, they're going to take, keeping the defending team their heads down away from windows. And certainly a turret guy sitting in one place is a very easy target for that sniper. So I like how they play off each other very well because you're never really safe anywhere you are. Because it's always this back and forth of where are they going to come from? What are their tactics going to be? Makes each match very unique from each other and creates a very fresh experience every time you play, depending on your teammates and the people you play against as well. So during the mini multiplayer matches I played during the preview, I was able to play through all 20 operators, and I'm happy to say there isn't a bad one in the bunch. They're all very fun, and what I like a lot about them is they're designed to be certain niche roles. So if you play a lot of other tactical team-based shooters, you probably have a certain role you enjoy, like being the point man, being a support unit, being a guy who does defensive tactics to counter with the enemy's offensive tactics, or on the other side of the spectrum, if you want to use that offensive gear to counter the defensive enemy. It goes both ways, and I love it because no match is ever the same, because when you start up the match and pick your operators, you're limited to you can only pick an operator that's not chosen by another member of your team. So it forces unique team composition, and every single team comp is going to have a unique experience based on the players playing them, their teamwork, their tactics, and more importantly, what the enemy picks as well. So it's very important to learn what counters what and get in the habit of, like, if one guy keeps picking one class over and over again, you're eventually going to figure out, like, man, I need to pick something else that will counter that. And you figure it out, and you now learned an extra tactic to defeat people. So it always encourages you to be very creative with how you approach combat, because doing the same thing over and over again is really quickly going to be picked up by your opponents, and they're going to abuse that and destroy you. So I really like what the style of game does by having the unique team composition for both sides. It guarantees that no two matches will ever be the same. because everything plays out differently the moment the first shots are fired. That's what I love. You can have the most detailed plan possible, but as soon as the S hits the fan, everything goes south, and it takes a really, truly talented team to come back from surprise situations. So you may be stacked up against one side of the wall, fully expecting the enemy to come through a certain window or choke point, and sure enough, they outthought you. They came behind. They came from two different levels at the same time, and it's now up to you to adapt or die. So the game breaks down into 4 core tenets. You have the siege asymmetrical gameplay, with the assaulting team trying to desperately get into the defensive structure and eliminate the enemy team or capture their objective, and the defending team doing everything possible to reinforce their structure, their hideout, and keep the assault team from finding where the objective is or killing them all. The one life philosophy, which is very important to this game. You only have one life, make it count. You get shot in the head, that's it, you're done. If you're shot in the chest or lower, you can be put in a down state. You can still be executed, but you can also be revived by your teammates as well, giving you one more chance back in the fight. So it really rewards smart tactical thinking, and there really aren't any heroes in this game. It's only smart leaders and people that can execute great plans quickly or think on the fly. And of course, the biggest part of Rainbow Six Siege is the procedural destruction. The destruction in this game is like nothing you've seen before, probably since the days of Battlefield Bad Company 2. But this makes it much more intimate by having these smaller maps designed usually with structures, multi-storied houses with basements and attics and many floors. If a wall is not concrete or brick, you can probably shoot through it and be killed through it, vice versa. So it's great because it plays both ways. You have to be very aware of where you're standing, what the floor is made out of, what the walls are made out of, what the ceiling's made out of, because if it's a wooden structure or anything less than that, it can be breached, it can be shot through, or at the very least, it can be destroyed to the point where you can see the beams in the wall, the support beams, and still shoot through those as lines of sight, or throw grenades and gadgets through them as well. So every time you play a map, it's completely different from the last experience, because by the end of it, it literally looks like a war took place. Even though it's only 5 versus 5, there is a lot of gunfire explosions that can happen in those short 4-minute rounds. Now, so on to the single-player content I touched on earlier. It's not true single-player in what you might expect from previous games in the series. There's no real plot per se other than, Rainbow Six reactivating the Rainbow program, and this is essentially a training simulation in that universe to train new operators to join new Team Rainbow. So the single-player missions are called situations, and what they are is it's 11 preset training sessions that load each of the multiplayer maps in the game, because there's 11 maps total at launch, giving you a certain operator, either assault or defense, and it basically teaches you the mechanics of the game very slowly so you understand them and pick up on them. So that's just what I really like about this. It on the surface, it just sounds like a tutorial, and you're like, I don't need a tutorial, I know how to play a shooting game. But this is well designed because it teaches you certain avenues to approach certain maps, certain strategies you wouldn't think of, because the AI reacts much differently from human players. So you might be tasked to, kill all the enemies in a certain amount of time, or extract a hostage, defuse a bomb, show that you can, breach from a ceiling, a floor, a wall, things like that. It's really cool because it kind of not so much holds your hand, but shapes you to be a better player and prepares you for the multiplayer versus combat, which is, sink or swim, essentially. So it's really important, I think, when you start up Rainbow Six Siege, play the situations first. They are one of the better training modes I have seen in a game in recent years, because they're fun and they encourage replayability, because to get a better time, and more importantly, each of these situations, they have certain objectives. So you have 3 stars on each map, and each of those stars awards you renown, and renown is the currency in the game that you would use to buy new operators, and then to buy new guns, and then upgrade those guns with sights and silencers and all that usual stuff you expect in modern tactical warfare. It's very satisfying, too, just to get a handle on how to approach certain maps and not just be thrown into a multiplayer match, not knowing the map design, not knowing what to do, and then your teammates get mad at you. So I would highly recommend, when this game comes out, do play the situations. They are more fun than your average tutorial, and they will teach you some pretty cool gameplay tactics as well. So moving on, if you played the beta, you're familiar with the concept of terrorist hunt for Rainbow Six Siege. It's different from past versions of Rainbow Six because, again, the procedural destruction of the maps works both ways. The enemies can do it just as much as you can, making them much more dangerous than you would expect. So you can play Lone Wolf, of course. You got the normal, the hard, the realistic settings, or as I would recommend you do, play it online with 4 other buddies. So you have a 5-man squad. And if you're communicating and working together, it's a very satisfying feeling to take down the terrorist. So you have 2 modes right now available that they've announced. You have the traditional terrorist hunt, where there's a certain amount of enemies on the map, say between 25 to 30, depends on the difficulty setting you pick, all inside that one structure. So you pick assaulting classes, one of the 10 assaulting classes, to go in and kill all of those terrorists any way possible. But be careful, they are very good shots. They're smarter than you think, and they will definitely abuse the fact that they can shoot through walls, blow up walls, and use any means possible, including suicide bombers, to take you down. So it's very important to talk to your team, use strategy, use tactics. And it's very satisfying too, because again, these terrorist hunt maps take place on the 11 multiplayer maps. They're all very well designed because they work both with AI and with people. So the terrorist hunt is also an additional great way, essentially a next step, if you will, from the situations training mode to teaching you, okay, you understand the map design. Now show me you know how to move tactically, because if you just run and gun, you will be dead in seconds. These terrorists do not forgive, they do not forget, and they are very well trained, making the game exciting, giving it that replay value that you're like, man, that was challenging and tough, but I think I have a better strategy this time. Guys, let's try a new tactic. And it rewards team participation. It's a really good way to make friends too, because I feel like a lot of recent Xbox Live, PlayStation, PC, Steam games don't really encourage that sense of teamwork and camaraderie, because it's more like, look how many players we have in our game versus small number of players make that count. So I really enjoy this aspect of, it encourages using a mic, talking with your teammates, and you'll probably make some good friends along the way as well, because it is a blast to play terrorist hunt. So in addition to what I said, where you have the normal terrorist hunt where you hunt down and kill all of the soldiers on the map, there's also the harder setting where it tasks you with defusing 2 bombs on the map as well. And this is challenging in 2 ways, because you still have all the enemies already on the map trying to prevent you from getting to the bombs in the first place. And only one member of your team has a defusal kit to defuse those bombs. So if that person goes down, you have to go get the defusal kit off of their body and make sure at least one of you has it at any time. And once you start diffusing it, it takes about a minute, but it is a very long minute, because as soon as you plan it starts spawning a lot of enemies to charge into the room that you're in and try to prevent you from disarming their bomb. So it's very challenging. It requires everybody to be on point when you're planning a bomb and defusing it and calling out, hey, they're coming through this room, they're coming through this room. So you don't want to go get taken out by a suicide bomber you guys didn't see coming because no one was watching a certain doorway or window. So it's very exciting and adds an extra level of difficulty and excitement to the terrorist hunt on top of the traditional kill them all method. Now, that brings us to the multiplayer, the versus multiplayer, which is, for me, the meat and bones of the experience, because it's essentially the third and final step for the Rainbow Six experience. You've gone through the solo training, you've done the terrorist hunt, you understand how to be a team player. Now apply those skills against real people. And this is where it gets dangerous, because humans are very hard to predict. Especially a team of 5 locked in a house, you're not sure where they are, and you have to go and find and kill them and take their objective. So what I like, if you haven't played the beta before, at the beginning of the SALT team, when you start spawn in, everyone has their little drone that they control, which is like a little remote control car. They have to go inside the structure and try to spot where the enemies are hiding or find the objective they're trying to prevent you from finding. And if you do, great. Now it's marked on your map and you know where to start breaching and coming after them. If they don't find it, or if the defending team kills all of your drones, now you're going in blind, which is very dangerous because you do not know where the enemy is. You don't know their strategy, their plan. So it really encourages you to think tactically, think smart, talk to your team most importantly. So this is what I really enjoy is this is going to be very replayable, because not only are these 11 maps very well designed and fun, but when you add players into them, it opens up the doors for so many tactics that you'll be like, wow, I didn't even think to do that, or I didn't even know that was possible. So, usually instead of getting mad in these situations, you're impressed at the tactics of the other team, because when it comes right down to it, this is a very skill-based game. It has a learning curve, but again, if you went through the situations in Terrorist Hunt, you have a pretty good idea of how the game works. Now it's up to you to apply that into practice. Talk with your teammates, form strategies, react on the fly, cover multiple angles when you enter a room. If anything, I'd recommend go watch tactics videos of real life operators and how they breach and clear rooms, because those same tactics work very well in this game. Watching each other's back, going in one after the other, making sure all corners are covered. It's very satisfying to get into that military mode and give commands. And if your team is well cohesive, if there is a dedicated leader on the team and they take those commands and respond to them and give good feedback and information, you guys will be unstoppable. Because if the other team isn't talking to each other at all, you are going to destroy them every time. So teamwork and communication are critical to this game, and that's why I enjoy it so much, because it's such a good homage to the original Rainbow Six idea, which, I've been playing them since the beginning, since the first one on PC and Rogue Spear, and of course Rainbow Six 3 on the original Xbox and Vegas 1 and Vegas 2. Loved all of them, but I love Rainbow Six because it continues to evolve as a series. No game in the series is similar to the last one, and this is no exception. And this might be my favorite iteration of the game so far, because again, that procedural destruction, that teamwork, that one life mentality, it means so much. So that brings us to why is this game so good? The gameplay is fantastic. The shooting is well done, handles very well in terms of your movement, your abilities, but I think it comes down to the 11 multiplayer maps. So you've probably seen a couple of them, like Consulate, Hereford Base, and House if you played the beta before. But I also got to see some new ones as well that were shown off for the first time at the event. And some of these are actually some of my new favorites already. So let's start off with, there's this map called Chalet, which is essentially a ski cabin in the Swiss Alps, large, multi-structured, back porch, front porch, many windows, lines of sight, many different ways to get in, around, and inside this building. And it's essentially to me, a better version of the house map if you played the beta, because it adds so much more maneuverability than the original house had, because it is in wilderness. It looks like it's an abandoned place. Someone's used it for a while, so don't feel bad about shooting the place up. But I really like, the large staircases, the large open floor rooms, the high ceilings. I mean, if you played Until Dawn, think of that cabin from that game, and that's a pretty good inspiration to think of, where they pulled inspiration for this map. So I really like Chalet a lot. It's your it's your obligatory snow map you have to have in most games, but I really like it a lot. It's well designed. It's a blast to play. Definitely gonna be one of my favorites. Moving on, they also announced Clubhouse as well, which is more of a smaller, intimate space, because it takes place basically in the basement of a venue, if you will, with it's like a Sons of Anarchy, Hell's Angels kind of biker club, hangout room. So it has close quarters, small living room type spaces. It has longer corridors, lots of different angles for elevation. It's really well designed as well, and I like this one because a lot of the walls are covered in so much memorabilia and stuff, you almost wouldn't expect that you can breach or shoot through them. But guess what, you can. They're still wooden walls. So it was a fun learning experience being like, oh, this looks like a safe wall. Oh, no, they can tear right through it like tissue paper. So I just love always being on my guard of every time you approach a new map, there's always a new design philosophy and a new way to be like, I need to think of this differently, because no two maps are the same, more or less. Then you move on to something like Canal, which is another new one as well, which takes place, as the name implies, in a canal with a large shipping cargo ship sitting outside, and you guys are fighting in this 2-building structure connected with one narrow bridge on the bottom. Outside, a lot of open combat, very good for a sniper to use. Very tough to penetrate some of these rooms, because one of the buildings is a single story and it has a basement, and one of the other buildings is 3 stories and has a roof as well you can come into. So you have multiple angles for the defenders to hide in and multiple angles for the assault team to infiltrate in. Another really good map. And again, if you're a sniping loving guy like me, love those long sight lines. Love that you can get a good angle on people and keep them away from windows, because if war teaches you anything, don't stay next to windows. It's going to get you shot. So then we go on to Oregon, another new map, which is it's called Oregon, but looks more like Kansas. It's like a Dust Bowl inspired farm setting with an old creaky farmhouse. Kind of reminds me of the creepy farmhouse from the end of the first Condemned Criminal Origins game. So it's got that creepy horror vibe to it, but it's also cool because a lot of the structure is concrete. So you actually have actual walls you can put your back to, having to give the other team be more creative with getting into rooms, because there's a lot more protection and cover in this older stone concrete structure than some of like the, more wooden structures like chalet or house. So I like Oregon a lot too, because, the large amount of the map is out open. It is on a farm, but there's also these cool dust storms that come too that obscure visibility. So it's kind of sometimes tough to get a shot on people outside, and you can't really tell who's friend and who's foe because, again, this is real warfare. You shoot your buddy in the back of the head, he's dead. He's not coming back from that. So be very careful where you choose and pick your targets. So again, encourages team communication very much so. Then finally, we have plane, which is a 747 jetliner or a 777 jetliner. Not really sure the designation of it, but the point is it is a big consumer passenger plane. Very empty, parked on a tarmac, and it has multiple levels as well. So there's many entry points. You could, go up the obvious front entrance of the stairs that lead up to the cockpit as the assault team. You could decide to infiltrate from the bottom of the plane in the cargo hold. You can decide to climb a ladder on the other side of the plane. So there's many entry points for the assault team, and the defending team has to get creative as well because there's not much cover in this place because, as you can imagine, a plane is quite bulletproof. It's not really made of any real durable material. So hiding behind seats is a no-no. Hiding behind narrow walls, not going to work either. So it really encourages smart, maze-like coordination by both teams to be calling out where they're coming from. Otherwise, you can get surrounded very quickly on the plane and exterminated. So it's really fun from both perspectives of how different and unique all of these maps are, in addition to the other maps we've seen already. So again, like 11 maps in total. From what I've seen, they're all fantastic. There isn't a bad one among them. They're well designed. They encourage that replayability because every time you play through it with a different set of teammates, against a different set of opponents, or it's against the AI, you're going to have a different experience every time. And that's why I enjoy Rainbow Six Siege so much, is that concept of replayability. And I know a lot of people begrudge the fact that there's no actual single-player story campaign like in previous games. But to me, I think this was the better alternative. Make a dedicated multiplayer game, and you can still charge $60 for it if it is well-designed, fun, and replayable. And I very much think Rainbow Six Siege hits all of those check marks. So finally, the last thing that they announced at the show is there's going to be a spectator mode available exclusively on PC at launch, and it will come to consoles on PlayStation 4, Xbox One a bit later once they add it in. But this was neat because it's essentially like adding an 11th player to the match. They're on neither team. They cannot talk or interact with either side, but it gives them this really well-designed spectator tool that can basically view the map from any angle. So you can have an above-looking down section of the map, and you can see all the little colored players running around, interacting and fighting with each other. So you can look and learn strategies from watching other players. So if you're new to the game, it's a great way kind of just, to not be too intimidated by, I want to watch other people play and see what tactics they use. So it's a great way not to be obtrusive or bother anybody. You just join a game as a spectator if it's open. Of course, you can close it if this is your lobby, not allow spectators if you want. But if you allow the spectator, that person can then zoom around the map, zoom through each level of the house, follow individual players, look through their eyes if they want, go back to the overview map. It's very reminiscent of the original Rainbow Six games where you would have that pre-planning stage at the beginning of the game and you'd map out designs on a map of entrance points and where you want to go and objectives. Similar to that, but now you're watching players in real time and how they handle situations, which is I really like that. It's a cool feature. I think it'll get a lot of good use out of possible esports inclusion in the future because again, the game was not designed with esports in mind. They wanted to design a fun game, but it has all the groundings and basics of a very good esports title because I do think this will be picked up by the competitive crowd and they will love it and they will play it very, very competitively. I very much look forward to seeing high-level play of this game for sure. So again, the spectator mode, it is really cool. If you're getting a PC version of the game, you're going to get that at launch. Great way to learn the maps, learn design, without being intimidated by being thrown in there and being berated by your teammates because you don't know what's going on. Spectator mode is a good way to get an overview of how each map operates and all the different entrance points and exit points as you watch everyone run around and fight to the death. So I think that'll just about do it for this episode of Gamertag Radio. Let me know what you think. Are you looking forward to Rainbow Six Siege as much as I am? Because I am very, very excited for this game. I can't wait to get my hands on it. And one more thing I'll note about my experience playing it. This is my first time playing it with the mouse and keyboard because up to that point, I'd only played it with the Xbox One controller at E3 during the beta. So for me, this was kind of my return to form if I haven't played Rainbow Six on a PC since the second Rogue Spear. And oh, wow, this is an amazing PC game. It is still an amazing Xbox One and PlayStation 4 game, but if you have a PC that can run this, I would recommend getting on this PC because your reaction time with the mouse is insane. It's very fun. And again, if you have any remembrance of playing old school Rainbow Six and Rogue Spear back on, 56K dial up on GameSpy Arcade back in the day like I did, this is very similar to that Twitch-based rewards, fast reflexes, fast teamwork, fast communication. I had a great time. So I think I'm going to have to pick this up on PC for sure because I had a blast playing it. But again, I have a lot of friends on PlayStation and Xbox as well. So I might have to double down as well, depending on how many friends get it on each of those respective systems. But the point is, regardless if you have PC, Xbox One, or PS4, I think you should very much pay attention to Rainbow Six Siege. If you didn't get a chance to try a beta, look forward to the release. It's coming out December 1st on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. I'd highly recommend you check it out. I mean, even if you're just casually interested in the concept of a tactical team shooter, check Rainbow Six Siege out because there's nothing else like it out there, and it is so unique, so fun. To me, it just screams like what I always imagined a next-gen Rainbow Six would be, because once you experience the frantic brutality, the close quarters, the destruction, the teamwork, and there's no other experience like it out there, and it is so much fun to play. I cannot wait to get my hands on the final version. I will be playing it for many, many months to come, and the best part, too, is you have those 11 multiplayer maps at launch. They've already confirmed every multiplayer map released afterwards as DLC will be free, because I do not want to splinter the community. So this game will have legs for a while. So look forward to it. Again, December 1st, PC, Xbox One, PS4, Rainbow Six Siege, coming later this year, this holiday. I do recommend you check it out. So that all does it for episode 512 of Gamertag Radio. This has essentially been the Paustinj Show. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please, again, if you want to send any feedback about this episode, you can hit us up at fanmail@gamertagradio.com. You can leave us a voicemail at 786-273-7GTR. That's 786-273-7GTR. So that'll do it for this week. Peace. I'm out.
You're listening to Gamertag Radio. Be sure to like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week.